More and more countries around the world are banning smartphones in schools, and not just during classes, but throughout the entire school day. France was one of the first to do it. China followed, taking things even further. The Netherlands just joined the list, and this trend, it's only growing. You might be thinking, wait, seriously, banning phones in the 21st century, isn't that a little extreme? But here's the twist. It's actually working. Schools that have removed smartphones are seeing real, measurable changes. Kids are more focused, grades are going up, and perhaps most importantly, their mental health is improving. So what happened? How did a device we carry every day, something as normal as a smartphone, turn into a serious threat to kids' learning, concentration, and emotional stability? Why are governments stepping in with sweeping laws to keep phones out of classrooms? And the big question, should the rest of the world follow? Let's find out. Let's look at the facts. In 2018, France took a bold step. It became the first major country to introduce a nationwide ban on smartphones in schools. And we're not just talking about using phones during lessons. The ban goes much further. French students are prohibited from using smartphones at any point during the school day, not in class, not during lunch, not even at recess. The only exceptions are for medical reasons or for students with disabilities. The goal was clear: reduce distractions, improve focus, and protect students' mental health. And while the move sparked debate at first, many parents and teachers quickly noticed the difference. Kids were more present, more engaged, and less anxious. What seemed like a controversial policy back then is now becoming a model for others. Meanwhile, other countries are taking action in their own ways. In China, the government went after what it sees as one of the biggest digital threats to young people: TikTok. In a dramatic move, authorities limited access to the app for minors to just 40 minutes a day. Not only that, the app automatically locks itself after the time runs out, and it's only available between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. for users under 18. This isn't just about screen time. Chinese officials have openly stated that short-form video platforms are harming kids' attention spans, sleep cycles, and overall development. Their solution? Set hard limits and enforce them with technology. In the Netherlands, a new policy takes effect in 2024, banning smartphones from classrooms altogether. The Dutch government cited rising concerns over academic decline and digital addiction as major reasons for the decision. And in the United Kingdom, lawmakers are pushing forward a nationwide policy that would also remove phones from schools. They say it's not about being anti-technology, it's about giving kids the ability to learn, think, and interact without constant digital interference. One thing's clear: this is no longer a fringe idea. It's a global shift, and it's happening fast. This isn't some random coincidence or moral panic. It's a global reaction, a direct response to a growing mountain of scientific evidence showing that smartphones are doing real damage to kids' ability to focus, retain information, and learn effectively. Researchers around the world have found the same disturbing patterns. The more time children spend on their phones, especially during the school day, the worse their academic performance becomes. Attention spans shrink, deep thinking disappears. Multitasking replaces real comprehension. And it's not just about learning, it's about the ability to even sit still, to process information, to engage in face-to-face conversation. These are core developmental skills that smartphones seem to be silently eroding day by day. Governments aren't banning phones just to be strict. They're doing it because the science is impossible to ignore anymore. Scientists are sounding the alarm, and they're not being subtle about it. A wave of studies over the past decade has painted a troubling picture. Constant smartphone use is fundamentally changing how young brains work. It's been linked to a dramatic decrease in attention span. Kids are finding it harder to focus even for a few minutes without reaching for their phones. Memory retention is also taking a hit. When information is just a Google search away, the brain becomes less inclined to store it. And perhaps most concerning of all, smartphones are disrupting impulse control, making it harder for kids to resist distractions, regulate emotions, or delay gratification. In short, the very habits that smartphones encourage, endless scrolling, constant notifications, multitasking, are rewiring the brain to crave quick hits of dopamine rather than deep learning or patience. And the effects are showing up in the classroom every single day. A study from Oxford University, one of the world's leading academic institutions, revealed just how serious the problem has become. Researchers found that students who use their phones during the school day, even just during breaks or lunch, retain significantly less information. Their brains are constantly shifting attention, never getting the chance to fully process or consolidate what they've learned. But it doesn't stop at academics. These students also showed higher levels of anxiety, more restlessness, and greater difficulty with self-regulation. In other words, they not only struggled to focus, they also found it harder to manage their emotions, control impulses, or simply stay calm. And what's striking is that these effects show up even when phone use seems minimal. Just checking social media during lunch or replying to a few messages between classes is enough to disrupt cognitive function for the rest of the day. Oxford's conclusion was clear. The presence of smartphones in schools, even when they're not being actively used in class, is doing measurable harm to students' mental and emotional health. One large-scale study conducted in the UK delivered a stunning result after schools implemented a smartphone ban. Academic performance among the lowest-performing students increased by an incredible 14%. Let that sink in to 14%. And this wasn't the result of new textbooks, longer school hours, or expensive technology. It came from doing just one thing: removing phones from the classroom. The researchers found that students were more attentive, more engaged in lessons, and less likely to get distracted or disrupt others. Even their test scores improved. And what's especially powerful about this finding is that it shows how much potential is being held back by digital distraction. Students who were falling behind suddenly had a real chance to catch up, not through tutoring or special programs, but by simply taking away the number one source of interruption in their day. It's one of the clearest pieces of evidence we have that this isn't just a moral debate, it's a practical solution with measurable impact. Public opinion on the issue is deeply divided. On one side, many parents and teachers are praising the bans, saying they've noticed immediate positive changes. Kids have become calmer, less irritable, and more emotionally present. They're more focused in class and outside of class. Something amazing is happening. They're actually talking to each other again. Real conversations, real eye contact, real connection. Some schools even report that social problems like bullying and anxiety have decreased, not because the issues vanished, but because students are no longer buried in screens, comparing themselves to filtered lives on Instagram or TikTok. But on the other side of the debate, critics argue that this approach is too extreme. They say smartphones are part of modern life and that banning them outright teaches avoidance instead of responsibility. Why not educate kids to use technology wisely instead of trying to eliminate it completely? They raise a fair point. Is the problem the tool itself or how we use it? This debate is far from over, but as more data pours in, the balance seems to be shifting. But here's the twist, and it might surprise you. Even students themselves, the so-called digital natives, are starting to admit that they feel better without their phones, at least during school hours. In interviews and surveys, many have said they feel more relaxed, less anxious, and more focused on what's happening around them during phone-free days. It turns out that not having to constantly check notifications, respond to messages, or keep up with social media brings a kind of mental relief they didn't even realize they needed. Some schools have started introducing digital detox programs, full days or even entire weeks without phones. No screens, no scrolling, no distractions. Just learning, socializing, and real presence. And the feedback, overwhelmingly positive, not just from teachers and parents, but from the students themselves. Many describe the experience as freeing or peaceful. Some even say they wish it happened more often. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes kids don't need more technology, they need a break from it. While some countries are already taking bold action, others are only beginning to recognize the scale of the problem. In places like Russia, the conversation has only recently moved into the public sphere. The Ministry of Education has acknowledged growing concerns over smartphone use in schools, citing issues like falling academic performance, increased anxiety, and digital dependency. There have been public discussions, expert panels, and even pilot programs exploring what a phone-free school environment might look like. But so far, no official law, no nationwide policy. And Russia isn't alone. In many parts of the world, governments are still hesitating, caught between modern tech culture and rising scientific evidence that something needs to change. The question is no longer whether smartphones affect learning. The data makes that clear. The real question now is, how long will countries wait before doing something about it? Because every year of inaction means more distracted minds and more lost potential. So, what does this all mean? Is this the future? Are we heading toward a new era where schools around the world are phone-free zones, places dedicated to focused learning, real conversations, and healthy development? Or is this all just another moral panic, a reactionary wave driven by fear of change like so many others before it? We've seen similar concerns with television, video games, even calculators. Could this be the same? It's a fair question. But here's what makes this different. The data. Study after study, country after country. The evidence is piling up, and it's all pointing in the same direction. Removing smartphones from schools leads to better outcomes, better focus, better behavior, better grades, and most importantly, better mental health. Whether you see it as a revolution or a temporary trend, one thing is clear. The bans are working. What do you think? Should smartphones be banned in schools, or is this all overblown? Let me know in the comments what's happening at your school or with your kids. If you believe kids deserve a real childhood without constant scrolling and digital noise, share this video. Maybe you'll help start a much-needed change.